Okay, so let's bust some of the common myths. Give me one or two. Like what do you need when it comes to marketing to be successful? Throw them at me.
Video.
You need videos. This is true, but this is not a myth. You just do need video. Bottom line. That's not a myth. Like what? What's that?
Social media.
You do need social media. I mean, that's like a reality. I'm not talking about realities. You're so good. You guys are on it.
You need to think like humor.
Humor, yes, right? Like,
But that's not a myth. You need humor.
well, that's subjective, right? Like,
Mirror the person you're with.
you need to mirror. Well, that's not a myth. That's true. But like some. Okay, so we're gonna go straight to the myths because you guys. Would you like to come and teach this? Just joking. Okay, so let's see what the myths are. All right, so that marketing really is writing copy, placing ads, creating brochures or business cards, right? And that's like it. How many of you right? How many people agree that that's when they think of marketing, that's the end all be all, right? And that you are your brand. How many of you have heard, like, you are your brand, so be a good, well, what happens if you're like a carpet cleaner or like you're flipping properties or you sell cannabis, like, what am I, like a weed now? Or like, do you know what I mean? It's like, you are not your brand, okay? You need to be creative. How many of you are like, yes, I'm so creative and I'm so excited that that is what I'm told to be? You need to be good at storytelling. How many of you have heard that? You need to be good at storytelling. You need to be extroverted like me. Such an introvert. You'd never know. So you have to be good at all of these things. Anyone noticing? Like you have to like change your entire being if you want to be good at marketing. So what is marketing? Well, it's the process of teaching your customers why they should choose your product or service over your competitors. So we have two clues here that you have to start to notice. We have why, and then why they should choose your product. And inherently in that is, well, what the hell is your product? Do you know what you're selling, and is that very clear to the people? So that's your second clue, is the why and the what. And there's a process that you have to go through. So your brand, when we talk about your brand, this is definitely something that people miss because they think that it represents themselves when it actually represents an identity that the market is receiving. So it's your market identity. It's like you leave your house and you put on another hat, and that your brand, like you may be your business, you may be like the owner of your business if you're in a small business, you may work for a company, but you are not Blessing White, you are not Shoreline Production Videos, you are not that. You just need to, you are the person that is representing that. So your brand has its own identity, which is so important, and we'll see why identity plays into this hugely in a little while. So your brand is, from its own perspective, like who is it? Who is your brand, right? Not who you are. What does it do? What do you do? Like you can personify your brand in terms of who it is, what it does, what you stand for, why they're in business, etc. But you want to not fall prey to the fact that this is representing who you are, because you can do all of these things. You can be very clear about who you are, and that can be very different to the actual product and business or service that you provide. Does that make sense? So people who are experiencing you in front of them, talking to them, saying like, hi, I'm a mortgage broker, or I sell makeup, or I'm from Blessing White, and I'm a, whatever it is, if that's not congruent with what they're expecting the business or the brand to provide or to be like or to personify as, there's going to be an immediate disconnect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's going to be an immediate disconnect.
Totally.
So if I came and I was like, okay, everyone, we're going to learn about brand marketing, and I was like some like, whatever, exactly, like, and I wasn't, that like lifestyle, and I wasn't congruent, you'd be like you'd be distracted by why I am different to my brand and what I'm talking about, right? So remember, you are always talking about your service and your brand. So when you come to the party, you want to be focused on the person and listening to the clues that they're giving you about what they think, how they value things, what they're dressed like, if they're talking fast or not, if they're using big gestures or not, because that's how you really build rapport with people, not when you're in your own little bubble. That's one of the first little things. You with me?
Yes.
Right, okay, moving on. So, what's next? Surprise me.
Show up.
Oh, it's a person. What is this person doing? So you are not your brand. Right, so what are you? Are we going to go back to this? Right, so you're not your brand. So marketing is not that. It's so much more. You are not your brand. We're ticking these things off. You need to be creative. You need to be good at storytelling, right? So we still have a few more myths to bust. And you need to be extroverted and you need to be all these things. So what happens if you're not very creative, right? Like then what? Does that mean you're totally screwed? No, it doesn't. And here's why. Finish this sentence. Right brain people are more creative. Is that true or false? How many people here think that you're more of a left brain orientated individual and that you still have a creative bone in your body? Anyone? No? Someone's laughing. They're like, oh good, we have one person in the audience. Fantastic. Well, just in case you were worried about this, because I thought that it was important. The thing is, right, so people think that there's this right and left brain dichotomy, and there is. There are fundamental differences neurologically with the left brain and the left hemisphere of the brain and the right hemisphere of the brain. They control different functions. For example, if you have a stroke and you lose if you have damage to the left hemisphere, the Broca's area, you will not be able to speak. So it controls the verbal function. So the brain is key because it controls all these different functions, right? And so here's the myth, is that left brain people are logical, analytical, scientific, and they're like very boring, right? They're going to the dentist, and then they're going for lunch with Susan, right? And right brain people are like me. They're like, woo, fun, color, snails, lunch with Susan. Is that true? No, it's not true. So yes, there are definitely different functions that different hemispheres of the brain control. However, what researchers found was that in 1981, I was 1 year old, 1981, Roger Sperry won a Nobel Prize for split brain research. What does that mean? They literally took the two hemispheres of the brain and they severed the two hemispheres to see how they operated independently. Bottom line is that what they found is that the brain, the more localized brain function, the more specific, like we can find, so this part of the brain does this. Now, it's not as cut and dry as that, but what it has advanced is the ability for us as individuals to understand ourselves and everyone else much easier and much quicker, and therefore build rapport with each other much faster. Does that make sense? So there is a set of profiles that I particularly love that helps us do this well, which takes not only the 4 quadrants of the brain, but it helps, it gives more specificity to each quadrant, giving you 8 kind of possibilities. Now the thing with this is, oh, it's working better from here. I'm going to stay here. Or not. So I'm going to go through each quadrant of the brain to help you understand what its function is, so that at the end of the day, you know how to appeal to all quadrants. Because every single one of us has a different configuration, has a different disposition, and a different kind of like bent on these quadrants. So we're using them to certain degrees and others. Like think of like a muscle building exercise. Some of us are going to have a tiny L1 quadrant. It's going to be like this big, right? And we're not going to be very strong. Whereas other people will have very large preference in other quadrants. And so if you, as a business owner and a professional, can start to become really clear on and clever with how to spot the clues, the behavioral clues, verbal clues, dress clues, gestures, right? You can start to really build rapport with your clients, your potential clients, your audiences, and with your marketing collateral, it's a fail-proof way. As long as you're appealing to every quadrant and you know what each quadrant is about, you're done and dusted. You're safe. You're not leaving out an entire quadrant or an entire set of questions or pains or things that people want to know. So every single one of you here listening to me now are listening through the filters of your preference.